TNO.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of
TNO.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Mike, you were nearly sleeping there, but you recovered. You kept us going.
I was just kind of hypnotized by me on jazz drums in the background, so sorry about that.
Yeah, man, I don't know if you saw that moment. I thought it was brilliant apart from the editors there. It was like they're talking about future life, and there you are going, and your future was cut short, man.
You know what the funny thing is like, even though, I too am and exhausted by 9-to-5 capitalism, when I saw that future life get whipped off, I the blanket come off the future life, I would have sold my first child into servitude so I could have had an endless supply of future life. My God, that stuff was delicious.
I can imagine. You even got a Nela, busy snatching too. How you guys didn't pick that up, I don't know.
Tell me about it.
I mean, did you guys not count it? Was there, just out of curiosity, was there 9 for everything?
No, there's literally me looking into the thing and going 7. Like, if you rewatch it, there's a bit of them going, there's 7, and me going 7. So it was definitely was noticed, but I mean, there was no Sherlock Holmes in the group that day. We had far bigger fish to fry, so I guess we just had to let it slide.
Yeah, man. Talking about Fresh and Sherlock Holmes, I don't know. You commented on this. It's kind of, you had a bit of a Pied Piper moment. I mean, we had Pinty on last week, or actually on Monday, and she kept saying, she had to go after you because you were this mastermind. And obviously, that edit in particular in the episode 2, we saw you sleeping on the beach, and we're like, geez, what is this guy? What kind of vibe are you giving off that whenever someone just comes across you, they're like, we can't work with this guy?
Sorry, Claudia, the line just cracked there for a second. They said every time someone comes across me, and then I didn't hear the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, no. So whenever someone came across you, straight afterwards, their confessional was like, we can't play with this guy. He just seems so sneaky. He just seems so calculated. I think calculated was the word. I mean, what kind of vibe are you giving off here?
Tell me about it. I mean, especially since, clearly the vibe I was going for in that second episode was like the real G's move in silence, like lasagna cut, where, I was clearly just like a mafia don dispatching Carla and Kieran and and people to hustle on my behalf.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's not true. In that everyone had said, Mike had played really hard out the gate, and he had I'd let the cat out of the bag about being a strategic threat. And, the honest truth is that I think the Mike you see in the third episode, who's like thinking about numbers and where people's best interests lie and incentives and where things might swing, was the same Mike in other episodes. And I think one of my biggest mistakes in the game is I think I'm not bad at the thinking through what's in people's interests and things like that, and listening to people and trying to work out what's going on. But I was really bad at concealing my threat level, and that was catastrophic. I guess also part of me in a weird way, like especially after I chipped my tooth. There was this weird thing where like.
How did that happen, by the way? Because I'm like checking, like, wait, he had a tooth in the last episode, and all of a sudden, I don't know if because Jason spoke about pythons being on there, you join Zamba, and all of a sudden there's no tooth. I don't know, the python come back in the night while you guys are sleeping, just like sucked it out. I'm not sure. What happened there?
I know there's a Survivor, on the Survivor Twitter account, they tweeted like a little bonus feature where it gets explained, but effectively I had been eating, sugarcane. And just before a challenge, I chipped it. So I think it's sometime in the second episode. You can see I've got a normal mouth, and then I've got a chipped tooth kind of on the latter half of the episode. But the funny thing is that it was such a ridiculous thing to, I just looked like a janky pirate after I chipped that damn thing. That it had quite a good effect, and that like up until that point I was really anxious, and I was like, oh, I want to play hard and I want to have fun, and but also I mustn't let my threat level get too high, and then this and that, and I've got to be more strategic about who I'm talking with, and my anxiety really was kind of intruding into my joy. And then after I chipped my tooth, I was like, I'm putting away Lawyer Mike, and Pirate Mike is like clearly the survivor gods have willed it. That Pirate Mike must take over. And I think at that point I started to say, I'm just going to be as Machiavellian and openly strategic and bastardy as I want. And you know what? It sounds funny. Like in the back of my head, I knew that, especially in the early game, the best game one can play is just to keep your head down, keep low. It's like it's the best goat. The best strategy is a goat strategy. Especially in the earlier part of the game, I think, just to kind of keep your head down and go with it. But there's always a risk, even if you take that strategy, that you end up on the wrong side of a number and you get voted out. And you never. A lot of people say that they got voted out without having had a chance to play the game. And after I had that chipped tooth moment, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to play as hard as I can and let the survivor guards decide when to vote me out. And part of my thinking was that, maybe people will think, oh my God, this guy's so obviously a pain in the ass with his strategic thinking, that he's way too much of a threat, but he's such a threat, we'll just get rid of him later. He's an obvious threat. Like, let's keep him around, and then when the mood is right, we'll chuck him. I thought there was a little chance that would happen, but I was wrong. So yeah, I kind of took the Pirate Mike route, and it didn't get me too far, but Lord, I had a good time.
Like the Pirate Mike look, I mean, there's a lot to it. I think it goes well with look. I mean, a really well put together James Bond, and then all of a sudden it looks like you got the chink in the armor. Be like, hey man, we can talk to this guy. It doesn't seem above us anymore. Because I kind of feel like that's the impression you were giving. Like you were just casting, like you're looking down on the people, not that you were doing it in a negative way, but they felt very intimidated by your presence because you were so calm. Like you even have that moment in tribal council where your name's on the chopping block and you're like, no, I'm cool, I'm all right, you're like, and you just carried yourself so well, like you could literally feel the ground trembling under everyone else's feet. They're like, does this guy have something else underneath his plan? But I mean, we're talking about the pirate version. Surely pirates make guys walk the plank, and in this scenario you've kind of fallen into a sort of situation where you've done the tribe swap, you've got the majority in the numbers. Obviously, there's a fraction there between Paul and Chappies, and those are arguably the two wrong people to be together because they were both kept in the blind side, and that was a blind side you were directly involved in. So instead of going towards the other guys and putting like this strong sort of image together, you guys come out off the bat completely fractured. And it gives the other guys, it all of a sudden takes them out of the spotlight and puts you guys in the target. So I kind of feel like when that moment happens as a pirate, do you not then try and force it down Chappie's way and make him walk the plank instead of broken glass?
Claudia, the last thing I heard you said, you're not trying to force it down Chappie's way and make him walk the plank.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, like, why don't you push the narrative instead of trying to like mend broken glass?
It's a great point, and it was something I definitely thought about, and it wasn't going to work. I think for two reasons. The first is that I just don't think that. I think it was very obvious to Zamba that it would not be in their interest to join me, Carla, and Wadada. And at that time, I thought Santani. I mean, if you're three people and you join a 4-person alliance, you're going to be at the bottom of that 4. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So would you rather, as 3 people, join a 4-person alliance or absorb 2 people into a 5-person alliance and crush the 4? And especially then, your 3 old Zamba would be the dominant faction within that alliance. So I just think from like an incentives point of view, it didn't make sense for Zamba to come with us and get rid of Chappies and Paul when they could absorb Chappies and Paul and switch the whole tribe dynamic. So it wasn't just that I think Chappies and Paul wanted out. I think also from Zamba's perspective, it would make complete sense for them to absorb those two and become a dominant 5. Then with Santini a dominant 6. So, and to Claudio, are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm listening. Sorry, I'm ready.
And to be honest, in that conversation I was having with Carla, that was one of the things I'd said to her was like, do Chappies and Paul, do you think they want to join us and join the bottom of our alliance where it's all tense, or do you think they would want to join the others? And vice versa. If you were them, if you were the old Zumba, why would you join 4 strong people and still be in the minority when you could just absorb 2 Lucy's and crush the 4? So just incentives wise, it never was going to make sense. 1. And then 2, this is, it's important that because it's funny, it's like Survivor is an interesting game between feeling naturally very drawn to people that you do have a good vibe with, and then doing kind of deals and alliances and business with people where you're not maybe necessarily a good fit, but it's in your interest, right? And there's always kind of a tension between those two. And I think part of my thinking when I was there, and by the way, this is purely speculative, at least this is what was going through my head at the time, was, we meet Sean, we meet Smash, we meet Amy, and we're all kind of chatting and kind of, sizing each other up. And I kind of had this thought of it's like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be as an attractive fit to these guys as Paul and Chappies are. Paul and Chappies are like alpha men. They're super athletic, super smart, strategic. They're unbelievably strong players. And so is Smash and so is Sean. They're these kind of classic alpha men. And Amy, of course, is an incredible player and an incredible mind and social player in her own right. And I guess I kind of looked at them and I was like, I've done enough all boys school to know that I don't fit in with alpha men. I've got a lot of friends who are alpha males, but I think part of it is always known that I can parachute out and be my own weird dude on the side. I'm not much of an athlete. I'm certainly not much of a boy's boy or a man's man. And I just kind of was like, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to be able to bring Smash and Sean on side quick enough compared to Chappies and Paul, who are way more kind of archetypally similar. There's way more of a natural fit for them. And another thing that you kind of it's funny because obviously on the show you kind of get a bit of a sense for it, but when you're playing the game, especially like that, you won't believe how time pressured you feel, because okay, sun goes down, we're going to be walking off to tribal council. We don't have a watch. It's maybe lunchtime now. And we have so much time, we have so much to work out. Who are we going to lie with? What's the conversations we need to have? What are we going to do? So you're under this huge time pressure, and you start to kind of make rules of thumb. You start to try and say, where do I think I'd be better off? And I just thought, when you weigh it all up, both in terms of personality fit, as well as just raw basic best interest incentives, I was never going to bring Smash and Sean and Amy on side. And so because of that, I was like, I have to double down and be Vuna strong.
Oh, geez. When you paint that picture, that's an interesting one. Is that something you felt while you were going about it, or was that a preconceived idea that you had before even attempting it?
I mean, why don't you unpack that a little bit? What do you mean?
So you're saying, obviously, these are somewhat alpha males, and you're going, you mix with these guys, and you can feel it. Is that something when you saw them immediately joining the tribe, you kind of gone, oh, okay, this is kind of the angle, I'm slightly on the back foot here? Or did you actually genuinely try and have these conversations, and then that was the vibe you got given?
It's that's an interesting question. Look, I tell you what, it was definitely a case that it wasn't like I arrived and was like, I'm not speaking to these dudes. There definitely was a lot of time of sitting and chatting and trying to connect and make it work. But definitely it was at some stage in my head, I was like, I made a bit of a judgment call. I was like, I think my very limited time I have now is going to be better allocated trying to bring over Chappies and Paul then trying to be in an arms race against Chappies and Paul to bring Sean, Smash, and Amy on side.
I love how I just love the arms race sort of analogy. I think that sums it up brilliantly. Yeah.
You know, it was an arms race, but of course, you know, there's none of these. That factor was very much a secondary factor to the primary factor of just thinking, where do these incentives lie? I mean, that it's certainly the whole thing of vibe and personality was not my primary consideration. My primary consideration was, if you step back and you just think about this rationally, it makes no sense for old Zumba to side with us four or three. It just does not make sense. And then on top of that, I was like, and whatever chance I have of trying to work around that incentive is probably not going to work, just on the basis that I don't think I'm not going to win the arms race. Like Chappies and Paul and them are way more peas in a pod. Yeah. That said, I could be wrong. I mean, maybe Smash and Sean and AB are secretly like big, weird, you know, geeky, I don't know, theater nerds, whatever. But like I say, those time pressures, you have to make these calls. Where am I allocating my time? Yeah. Where am I allocating my attention? And c'est la vie.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair points. I just want to ask you, in terms of Carla and the role that she plays, in terms of how everything shakes out, do you think aligning yourself with her in that pit, obviously from the beginning, she's your number one. The first thing going, okay, that is a sort of very overt number one. We know in Survivor, if people can see you playing with someone else, you already seem like a pair, and that's extremely dangerous. So you've already got the pair thing going on. And then she's quite reactive, and she's very emotional. You pointed out, like, it's still, I brought it on the line, illogical when she's going after certain things. Do you think that rocked the boat a bit too much, too soon when you did do the merge, where maybe you could have still sussed them out, felt it, but that sort of instance, her going straight, flipping the switch, going, no, Paul's, the arm race is on, Paul and Chappies is out. Like, do you think that played a huge part in your demise?
You know, it's a debate I've had with myself quite extensively, because part of it was like, well, maybe it was inevitable. Like, you know, once we arrived, maybe even if Carla had stayed totally stum and we'd just given kumbaya energy, that Paul and Chappies would have moved over anyway because of the hard feelings from the Pinty vote. And again, just, you know, if you just break it down to pure logic, it makes complete sense for them to have done that. I mean, they knew that, I mean, they coming from Old Vuna, we were on the opposite sides of the spectrum pretty much. You know, as part of that blind side, I had definitely done a little bit of, let's say, communicated some misinformation to
like, you've got a, sorry, man, you've got a special guest coming in here at the bottom.
Hey!
Can you see it? Little shout out there.
My little shout out, like,
yeah, there we go. Kian, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Mike, sorry, as you were.
Such a sweetheart. So I think so that, you know, coming up with that Pinty vote, you know, I'd already lied to Chappies the day before. I'd lied to Paul, you know, not for no reason, not like out of the blue. You know, it was kind of part of buttressing and kind of belts and bracing approach that Brian side we were doing. But it definitely limed the soil a little bit. So I would be fascinated to ask Paul and Chappies. It's kind of one of the first things I want to ask them, is if they thought that, like, actually they could have still played with us. And I guess that'll be fascinating to ask. But I mean, the episode opens with me saying, okay, cool, Chappies next. Like, that's the next person I want out of here. So, and by the way, because Chappies is such a threat, like, Chappies is such a good player. Like, he's a beast. Like, he's so athletic. He's so charming. He's guck smart. Like, he's super strategic. Like, I was like, guys, we need to get this guy out of here. Like, he's a risk. And because of that, I think I had previously so tightly nailed my colors to the mast that like it
Yeah.
would have been real difficult to work with me. So on that interpretation, perhaps Carla's opening the arms race didn't do anything. And in a parallel universe, or on the other hand, maybe Chappies and Paul were still kind of relatively down, and maybe they would have been convinced by my by my argument about like Leo, let's bury the hatchet and just all work in our best interest. But I guess whatever hope there was of that, kind of was ended with Carla, I guess, so forcefully pinning her colors to the mast in that moment with old Zamba.
Yeah.
But part of your question in there, I think too, was like, oh, sorry, no, let me leave it at that. Go on.
Okay. Are you sure? Are you sure you just want to leave it there?
What's that?
No, I said, are you sure you just want to leave it there? I mean, you can continue. Finish that thought.
My problem is that I think in like book chapters and not paragraphs, and so I just end up monologuing, and I'm so tired of my own voice at this stage. Like, I want to make it kind of more interactive and keep it a bit light, and not just like Mike does Shakespeare. So ask away, man.
Look. I think part of the beauty of the cast, and you've already seen if you've been following social media, everyone's super impressed with the cast, and it's having characters like you on doing your Shakespeare bits, and then having Jason doing sort of the Ace Ventura bit and everything else. It's throwing it all in one melting pot's been fantastic, and having you, dude, it's amazing. It is a bit sad we didn't get to see more of the villain play out. Like, I still think you were evolving as the villain, but again, masking it was a bit of your issue. But just going back to before you go to final tribal council and you've got Paul and you're making that final plea and he's like, yeah, 100%. I'm with you 100%. I mean, his face is hardly enthused about it. I'm just watching it going, shit, dude. Like, are you not seeing his body reaction? Were you feeling some sort of authenticity when he was saying that? Or were you just hoping his word was 100% accurate?
I was pretty convinced at that stage that I'd lost Chappies and Paul. And in that moment, I was like, I think there's an extremely high chance I'm going home. And I think it's an extremely high chance that these guys are going to flip. I don't know how they're going to do it. I actually thought for the longest time that I would go out via an idol, that someone had an idol on their side and that they knew we were going to vote for Smash. They'd put it on Smash and then I would go. So that was my theory of how I was going to go. I didn't know that it was Santi that was going to be the final dagger in the back. But by the way, if Santi's watching, I love that girl so much. Like, she's such good TV and she's such a nice human being, by the way. Even with the knife in my back, I'm a huge Santi stan. And
well, it's a knife with a lot of hearts, I think. It's like, yeah, she's almost like she stabs and she puts the smiley stickers on the back.
Yeah,
so that's okay.
She's like a rainbow unicorn who's like piercing you with her unicorn's like thing.
That's a great way to put it.
So anyway, yeah. So I was pretty unconvinced, and I think even before we go, like my last words before toodalooing off to tribal are something like, I'm putting my trust in two people, and this is definitely not working out, or not. It's not definitely not working out. It's like, and they don't really like me, or they don't really want to play with us. But you could even see then I was like pretty skeptical that was going to work out. But what then happened at tribal was the conversation was going on, and even when I was watching the episode on Thursday, I actually saw this moment, and it's so great that they caught it on camera, because it's the moment that in my head I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going home. Like 100%, they're not honoring this commitment, and it's not like an eye roll, but it's like it's like a smirk. I was like, okay, I'm dead. Like, I'm dead in this water. Like, there's no way I'm not going home.
Actually, like, on that point, sorry, Mike, on that point, I do think Paul's got a terrible poker face. Like, even when he's saying it, you can see, like, no, this guy's, there's no ways. Like, this is clearly a last-ditch effort from your point. Like, there's no other thing for you to do except hoping you've convinced them with your lawyer argument. Your body corporate scene, by the way, my personal experience from a body corporate, like, there's nothing good that comes from a body corporate. So, I mean, you leaning up with a body corporate. I'm like, Mike, where are you getting this from? And why do you think this is a good idea, especially on the island playing Survivor?
I just thought it was such a funny thing because I was like, body corporate sucks so much. Like every body corporate is like the worst concept ever. You know, as a lawyer, I'd sometimes had these matters come in front of, like, someone would be like, oh, there's a body corporate involved. I'd be like, yo, someone's getting sued. Body corporates suck. So I was like, why am I going to call it like the Anaconda Squad or like the Bomb Squad or the Three Amigos? You know, like some some like Hollywood wank. You know, I was like, no, let's just be super humorous and like call it the body corporate, and someone will get how ridiculous a concept this is.
Man.
So
it was good. I didn't enjoy it, but it did make me just think of like, oh, maybe it's too soon for me in my experiences, but I'm just like, I'm just like, oh, Mike. Yeah.
I feel like so many times in the last 3 years, you know what becoming an adult is like being stuck in conversations with friends who are having disputes with body corporates. Like that that's when you know like your youth is now over and you have hit like your 30s. So effectively, sorry, I'm lost a little. Oh yeah, so we're tribal council, Paul says something and I'm just like, oh, that's it, that's the game. I'm out. And that and the funny thing is that, you know, then when I'm like, well, Chuppies, like, did you really mean what you said and all that stuff? Because at that stage I was like, okay, Mike, your ass is going out. Let us just go out kicking and screaming. Make Chuppies feel as bad as possible. Try get him to commit to you on TV. Have him lie to you. Like put this, like go out on a bang, baby. Like make him go out clawing out of this thing. And so even that moment when he was saying, yeah, we're good. I in my head I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going. Look, to be fair, I wasn't 100%. I was like, maybe they are going to be honorable, and you know, maybe 10-15% they'll come through. But I think that's why I looked pretty calm, like in that moment. And when they said like, you know, when you sometimes say something and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting it to be interpreted like that, because when we got to tribal council and Nick was like, how are you feeling? And I was like, calm, as per usual. I thought I'd said it with enough sass to indicate that I was being super sarcastic. But then it came across as,
I mean, it was a bit facetious. It was super facetious. Like you going off, I'm like, this guy's too logical to know he's not going home at this point. Like when it's playing out, another edit's like putting it together. But that, I think, again, nail in the coffin was your logic. People would talk to you and be like, we can't pull the wool over this guy's eyes. We can't do it. Like he's sussing us out as we talk. Were you interpreting like everything being said, and like could you hide that when you were doing it in terms of your facial expressions?
I think one of the, you know, it's one of the things I'm going to blame is like my lawyer's training, because, you know, it's funny enough. So as a lawyer, you are trained to, like, at some level do persuasion. You are trained to think about people's incentives. You're trained to, you know, think about like how to think strategically. But what you are not taught to do is to conceal that. In fact, quite the opposite. The more flashy kind of out there you are about your logic, the kind of more, you know, like, I'm kind of overstating the position a little bit. I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but effectively I'm used to not having to, just being open with my thoughts, you know? And that is very unstrategic. You know, probably one of the most important features in Survivor of being a good player is threat management. You know, it's the ability to conceal, misdirect. You know, me and Carla had actually, the first time we met and connected is because one of us had made a joke about the art of war, and we had like super connected over that because we're both big fans of the art of war. And the art of war is the art of misdirection. Like if you read the art of war, that's effectively what the whole book is about. Like you don't have to be a stronger, you don't have to be anything. You just have to be better at misdirection. And I'm just maybe not so good at misdirection. I'm just too campy a Disney villain to be good at misdirection. You know, like Disney villains like lay out their whole, you know, plans before they like twiddle their mustache and jump in a hot air balloon to like go, you know. And that's me. I was super bad at concealing my plans.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially when you say that, I had a flashback of like every super Disney villain, and I was like, yeah, that's you. That's actually summed up brilliantly. That's incredible, dude. When did you discover this, like growing up?
I'd said that in my, if you look at my kind of like pre-season interview, like I actually said that. When like the little clip, you know, before the season aired, was me literally twiddling my mustache saying, I want to be a villain. Like, I want to be a big old, and, you know, it's funny, when we first recorded it, I said, I want to be like a big Disney villain, like Aladdin. And then in my head, I was like, Mike, you're probably breaking
I was
trademark.
like Jafar, bro. That's exactly.
Sorry, not Aladdin,
Yeah,
like Jafar, like Jafar. So I was like, I want to be like Jafar.
I was like, Clint, you got the Jafar vibe. But then I was like, I don't know, like the looks wise, you got like a 007 sort of, you know, villain. But I mean, you definitely have you just needed, who was your parrot?
No shame. Like, I think what it was like it was an ambitious Avengers style crossover of like me as Jafar, and then Carla's. I mean, she must choose her own villain. Like, but you know what the thing was is like another reason why me, Carla, and Kieran really bonded is that like straight off the bat, our whole thing was like we want to delight in being snakes. Like I was straight from the get go. I was like because in my day-to-day life, I have so many stringent rules and my anxiety and ethical obligations that I just don't get to do much lying. Like, and in fact, I'd explain it in another podcast we did before we start shooting. Like, it also is kind of a personal thing. Like, after I came out as gay when I was 19 or 20, I was like, I never really want to have to hide who I am again. You know, I don't want to have to lie about stuff. Like, it's too psychologically toxic. And so that's kind of more or less been my position in life. So when I hit Survivor, I want to just let go. Like, this is a boxing match. Like, I want to just be a bastard. Like, I want to lie as much as I can and have as much fun as I can. But in a weird way, there's a certain honesty in that, because I had said I'm a snake. Like, it was very Peter Baelish, you know, when he's like to Ned Stark, I told you not to trust me. Like, from the get-go was like, I'm a snake. Like, I'm a big old fabulous, good for hugging and naps and talking shit and kletzing and cracking jokes, but a snake. And I think I was honest about that.
No, dude. Also,
Also, I feel that like Survivor's at its best when you have fun. When you have fun snakes, like snakes who aren't feeling like super, you know, like emotionally, like, oh, what was me? I've said a lie. I'm like, my guy, lean in, lie, Baba. So whether it's good for your gameplay is a different story. You know, very obviously lying too much is a super bad strategy, but it makes for fun TV. So yeah.
Yeah, man, look, you were fun and you owned it, and that's what made you so fun, to your point, which is great. I just find it funny that as soon as you went to the Green Tribe, the Slytherin House, the Snake Tribe, it was tickets for you. It was almost like it was too real for people. It was almost like you were hiding your colors a little bit better when you were in the Vuna Tribe, the orange, you know, and then all of a sudden when they saw you in picture, in full Jafar mode, they're like, this is too real for us. We got to get rid of this guy. But
I'm going to challenge you on that, because one, you know, the whole second episode is people saying Mike's a big strategic threat, right? So clearly I'd really let that cat out the bag a little bit at Vuna. But I think the other thing is this is like, you know, what people don't realize about Survivor. Okay, here's a good example. You know, have you ever played like Monopoly or Risk or like Catan with like friends and family, and after 2 hours, it's got really competitive and the mood's got a big dark, and it's just like, oh my God, like I can't make, like, I know some families who've banned Monopoly, you know, and they've banned Risk and they've banned Catan. Okay, now imagine, because it brings out the worst in people, right? It brings out the worst in people.
I was the worst banker, dude. I was the worst banker. I'd always wanted to, like, every time, just take extra. And that was from the age of like 6 or 7. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, think how much, like, okay, now imagine playing all those 3 games for 9 days, and now imagine that there's R1 million is the gamble, and you haven't slept and you haven't eaten. Like, and so if you become a shit, if you become an asshole after playing an hour or 2 hours of Monopoly, you just imagine how much of a shit you are now 9 days into this game. You are the worst version of yourself. And, you know, Amy said that, oh, Mike is very calculated. And, you know, to be fair, I think I am. Like, but in my normal life, you know, I'm not playing Monopoly for 9 days, you know, so I can soften that and I can lean back and ease up and be chilled and be warm. And you do see that side of me with a number of people. Carla, you know, there's that one thing with Tyson where I'm joking around and, you know, we talk about me getting PTSD from my chipped tooth and putting on a weird Southern American accent. And so I can be fun and light and fluffy, but the minute we did that tribe swap, I looked down the bench and I was like, I'm in big trouble. I was like, I'm in big, big, big trouble. And all of a sudden, I think all that light fluffiness started to hit a bit of a break. And it was like, cool, we need to play now. Like, and I went into pirate mode in terms of thing, but quite cool. Like, let's get through this. Let's try and cut this up and stop a disaster from happening. So yeah, I think Amy's comment that was calculated was probably bang on.
Yeah, I think that was a lawyer seeing another lawyer and going, I recognize this sort of character in the court. So
there was a funny moment, like where, you know, both Amy and I were lying about being lawyers on the show. And, you know, when we first met, we were chatting and, you know, of course, you going through like, you know, your pretend history. And she's telling her fake story of how, you know, how she's not a lawyer. And I'm telling my fake story of how I'm not a lawyer. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a lawyer, and I'm pretty sure she knows I'm a lawyer. Like, I'm pretty sure that we both just worked each other out, and we're just gonna keep stum and not blow each other's covers, and what will be will be.
But why don't you put it aside at that point, like at the moment, and have like a sort of Sarah Dacina and a Tony moment, being like, you're a cop, like you're a lawyer, and like try and find it as a way to like bond and move forward together and keep it under wraps. And yeah.
It's too trivial a factor in an overall compatibility assessment, to be honest. I mean, cool. We work.
To be honest, Mike, I think your issue is you're doing compatibility assessments and you're going dive and you're looking for 10 or 15 points like to connect with someone. Maybe it was just the 1 point that you needed to keep going. I don't know. Is that maybe you're too calculated?
Maybe. Look, you know. I guess that's just how my brain works. But you know, okay, cool. So I'm a lawyer. You're a lawyer. What happens? I reveal that I'm a lawyer, and she goes, "I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what you're talking about." And now all of a sudden, I've really even further upped my threat profile. Or I say, "I'm a lawyer. You're a lawyer," and she's like, "Okay, cool." Great. Lawyers don't love lawyers, you know. It's not like we're the priesthood. Like lawyers hate lawyers. No one hates lawyers more than lawyers. So it wasn't like we're the Freemasons and we were going to do a secret handshake and now be like justice and like go out into the world. So, and on top of that, there were all these factors. It made no sense for her to it made little sense for her to come and play with us. And you know, I wasn't feeling this huge connection either, you know, from a personality point of view. And I knew she was close with Smash, and so if I thought it was something to pull at, I would have. But I mean, it's kind of a random bio fact. Nothing, you know, it's not a grip.
Okay, fair enough. What are we going to do now, Mike? Is we're going to focus on the actual episode. So what it's nice about this is you were on the island playing the game, and I was viewing the edit, and we've got 3 segments of the show. We've got the Golden Spear, which is the award given to the player who does the best thing or does the best move that advances their game. And obviously the player, in terms of when we're moving forward, we look at the wooden spoon, and that's a player who lands himself in a precarious situation based on what they did in the edit. And then we've got right at the end, Storms Brewing, and that's predictions moving forward in the game. So we're going to kick off first with the Golden Spear. And when you're looking at this episode, who are your standout candidates?
I mean, Santoni, I don't even want to give a short list. It's Santoni. Like, it's Santi. Straight up. I mean, Santi, I mean, people, you know, like people say on Twitter, oh, Mike got blindsided. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure blindside is the right word because I knew it was me or Smash. Like, exactly, I knew that. Like, I mean, if we're going to call everything a blindside, that's just dumb. But what I did not know was how it was going to happen. I was like, one of these people will betray me, or they'll play an idol, or there'll be some shenanigan that any will be allowed to vote or something. And so I kind of, yeah. I mean, like I said, I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought there was a good chance I was going to go home, but I didn't know how. And to be honest, Santi made absolutely the right move. Like, you know, if I step back and think about it, she had fallen kind of out of the tightness of me, Wada, and Carla, and we hadn't noticed. We had started to take her for granted, And so it made complete sense for her to effectively not get sucked up into our gravitational pull, and also to break me and Carla up. I mean, I actually think that, as is also kind of clear in the episode, is that maybe it wasn't so much about me or Smash. It was probably about more me or Carla who was going to get sent home. And to the extent I was the architect of my own misfortune, it wasn't that. It was in putting more of a price on my head than Carla. However, Santi, I did not expect it to be Santi, and she pulled it off perfectly. Like she was the perfect double agent. She sold us down the river perfectly, and just advanced her game great. And in that episode, she also gave the idol. She got Paul to give the idol to Tyson, and yeah, Santi, Golden Spear, Santi, straight up, no doubt.
And just out of curiosity, obviously Tyson now getting the idol because she passes the message on. But at the same time, they're passing the message on kind of puts a target. I know they're in the minority in sort of the tribes, but it kind of does put a target on Tyson because they can see, Dino calls it out saying, look, I can see there's something happening here. She also tells Chappies, and then she also tells Paul. So in effect, there's 3 people now who know her secrets. Now, moving forward and keeping numbers strong, that's great. But from a personal capacity in terms of moving forward, is that the best move? I mean, I'm hearing you saying it's great, but I'm just posing the different question. What do you think?
Yeah, and that it's like because it's not an idol that you have access to, and it's not an idol you're going to have access to for a long time. Now, of course, Tyson might hold on to that till the merge or whatever, but like because that's like not a it's not an idol whose primary benefit you're going to have. The secondary benefit in idols is like a kind of a propaganda style benefit, right? So by Santi saying, I've given this idol to Tyson, not only does she look like a ride or die babe, like who's down for the cause and is like super strategic and smart and playing the game and wants to work with Paul, wants to work with Chappies, but also now everyone knows Tyson's got an idol. You know, it's like on that side, you know, in terms of her allies, were to get to a place where that comes back into play with them, right? She's not holding the idol. And certainly, unless you don't see it in the edit, and I wasn't aware of Santi and Tyson having some super deep allyship that was being sold out by that disclosure. So in terms of an act of propaganda, I think it was bang on.
Number one. Okay, cool. Is it so? I know you sticking with Santi. Kieran obviously saves, and I mean, you guys have the advantage going into the challenge, and it somehow just slips away from you. And Kieran pulls through just from a challenge sort of perspective. He does super, super well. And in terms of him mending the 3 or being part of, getting the information from Tyson, so he seems very well connected. What do you think about in terms of this episode and the prospect of him moving forward in the game combined together? What do you think his chances are?
I adore Kieran. I love Kieran. Kieran was it was me, Carla, and Kieran. And the reason why I got so tight with Kieran is because the dude is in real life as cool as he seems on TV. He's super smart. He's super strategic. He's super funny. He's super warm. He's an athlete. He's a joy. Like I'm a huge Kieran stan. And I just pray my boy goes the distance because he's the real deal. You know what? There's a list of people who I would say who are definitely as cool in real life as they are on TV, and like who are getting a great edit and aren't having an overly favorable edit, in that like it's not inaccurate. They are as cool as they look, and Kieran is one of those people. Like, in fact, to be honest, in a foot race, let's say in a parallel universe, me, Kieran, and Carla end up, like going the distance. You know, like. I think out of the 3 of us, I would be the one to collapse. I'd be the one voted out first. Like I think both of them are probably on a swings and balances better players. And I'm just a huge Kieran stan. So if I was going to give the Golden Spear to anyone but Santi, it would be Kieran.
Okay, cool. So that's two. Yeah, that's two nominations. I've managed. You only went to Santi, but I managed to get 2 nominations out of you. The other thing I want to ask you, you said he's an athlete. What kind of athlete was he? I'm just curious because the way he was throwing that, I was like, what kind of, I mean, great hand-eye coordination, like overall athletic. Like what kind of sports do you know that he played before?
I mean, I don't talk about sports with people. Shit. What are you talking about?
So you didn't say like, you didn't know. I was like, okay,
what, around the water cooler? Yo, how's my
bro?
boy? What did you play a little cricket back in high school? What team?
I was curious, man. Like, okay, well, fair enough. Yeah, okay. Well, maybe that's why you guys lost the challenge. You should have maybe asked that question and got someone else throwing the hula hoop thing, the ring.
What's really funny is if you actually look really careful at the footage, you just see me like cross-legged, like hanging out for a lot of it. And but I was low-key relieved by it. But I also, if I remember correctly, at one stage was just tanning, like flat on my back.
Yeah.
You see it with Tyson. Tyson, I think, is just like someone was just lying on the platform, and like I was having my Club Med fantasy on that platform for a good little while as well.
Okay, sweet, man. So I'm gonna count down to 3. And once I count it down, you're going to give the Golden Spear, but you got to throw it and you'll be like, and that's your nomination. You give it to someone. All right.
But must I do like a sound effect? What, like, how much must I sell it?
However you want to throw it, dude. You can make a sound effect. You can be silent. I don't know. You can be a silent assassin. I don't know. I'm just going to count it. It's going to be, we're just going to get that moment. Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Golden Spear! 2! Out of my chakra. Third eye chakra, Golden Spear, man. Nice, man.
Wait. Who did you give it to?
Santi.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure. I was wondering if Kieran is climbing his way back in there, but the sports thing completely killed that argument. I mean, there were other things there, but okay, cool. We're going to move over to the second one, and we're going to discuss wooden spoon. All right. Wooden spoon, obviously, precarious situation. Which players on this edit made terrible moves?
Who made a terrible move? You know, I'm a ride or die kind of a guy. So there's part of me that wants to say, that would never say Carla. But who are the candidates for?
Iago's the parrot, and I'm not saying the parrot's a bad thing. Like Iago's a super cool character. He's one of my favorites.
I 100% refuse to allow Carla to be Iago because she was not. Like,
okay.
I 100% rebuke that in the name of our Lord. Carla is a wild ass player. She is 100% not Iago.
Okay.
Whoever's coming with that mixtape, you're dead to me. I rebuke that.
All I'm saying though is Iago's got a redemption story. That's all I'm saying. Like maybe there's something to come. Like you know what I mean. But anyway, okay. Not in terms of the actual character and the argument.
Oh, I mean, if Carla was going to be a villain, she would kind of be like a Cruella de Vil, kind of. I mean, and that's a fire villain. Cruella de Vil is a fire ass villain.
Cool. So I'm gonna stick with that.
Cruella maybe. Carla DeVille. I mean, Khaleesi, right? I mean, that's the brand that she's had going for her. Like Khaleesi from Game of Thrones kind of ends up villainous, as does maybe Carla on this edit. So
and fair, and she brings the fire like Khaleesi does. You know, she doesn't need your dragons.
Yeah, and she's I mean, I want to say she's a breaker of chains, but I mean, I guess the chains is us just like hugging and hanging out. So. So the wooden spoon. Okay, look, obviously, Carl and I had a very close working.
Wait, Mike, look. Dylan's rocking it. He's saying Corella. I dig that. That works. Corella. That works. There we go.
What a babe. So either Corella or Khaleesi. She's a super strategic player. She plays with her heart. She's also a superstar. Like she's so much fun to play with. And what you see in that third episode was like us debating things, right? And that was really what our relationship was like. We come, we talk, we think through things, we talk through things, we'd have very vigorous debate. It was, for 6 nights of cuddling, we were almost like a long-term couple who's just like, let's talk shop. Like we were pretty good at like being able to be rigorous with each other. And I kind of laughed because I was like, of course it would be like the bit that ends up in the edit is like the one time I'm like irritated with her, like an old boyfriend who's just a murdered, it's like she's but really, she had such a rewarding relationship with her. But I think I think she would maybe agree with me that on that day we just really had a difference in assessment of what the battlefield was, and I think my assessment was right and hers was wrong. Who knows though? Like maybe if we'd doubled down on her plan, it would have worked out. I don't think it would have. I think even based on what she says, she knows it wouldn't have worked. But maybe in a different parallel universe, she was right. But on the face of it, I think she's a contender for Wooden Spoon. I think I'm the other mega contender for Wooden Spoon, obviously. I think as I've explained, I think I'm tempted to toot my own horn and say that I think I had I was put in a very difficult position. It would have been very difficult to claw my way out of that situation. And if I did, I think all I would have done was delayed the inevitable. Then Carla would have gone home and it would have been me on the chopping block at the next tribal, probably. So either Carla for the arms race or me for the body corporate bonanza extravaganza. I mean, yeah, who I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
look. I don't think Teresa does herself any favors in this one. I mean, she's hard. She's struggling from what I can see to make a connection out there. And there, like when I'm looking at the dynamic, when you got the three talk about what are you saying? Three amigos, but the three blonde ladies going, cool, we'll let you in our tribe. You don't really feel, regardless of them three looking at you, you wouldn't really feel comfortable coming into that. But she's very defensive off the bat. She doesn't even entertain the idea. And I think that's a very difficult situation to shake off. And I think that's something she's struggling with, making any connection with someone. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I completely. I think that's probably a fair assessment of what is happening in the game. The only thing I'd really have to kind of in her defense, or maybe just to counterpose it, is like, I think when you're watching, you kind of think in your mind, oh, I'd be able to kind of completely retreat to the back, how I really feel about people, and just be my most car salesman self, and you do that, and then you get called then I look calculated, right? Like when I was the one who was like so you're caught between a rock and a hard place. You either play with people you want to play with, and you play from the heart, like Carla. I'm not saying Teresa's doing that, but I mean I think Carla's a great heart player. Or you like swallow your lack of a vibe with someone, and you play cerebrally, but then it comes across as sterile and cold. And so I understand the position that Teresa's in, even though in an ideal world maybe she would be slightly better at clutch controlling and be like, yeah guys, I'm very happy to join this table and drink more tricks with you guys. But the honest truth is that like it's such a difficult balance to draw. And I really sympathize with Teresa, because I think Teresa would have done very well in the Vuna tribe and the original Vuna. I think if Teresa's had been placed on Vuna, I would have loved to play as Teresa.
I think the two of you would have gotten on like a house on fire, man.
Yeah, like we would have gotten like a house on fire. And so I think she's also playing out of a tough spot. I think she's playing out of a real tough spot.
Okay, so you've mentioned yourself, you've mentioned Carla. Anyone else looking at it? I just thought maybe your whole Zamba tribe for not picking up on the fact that two of those Future Life bars are missing.
I mean, Smash got away with it, right? So if he got caught, it would have been Mosa Wooden Spoon. But he pulled it off. Ocean 11, those goddamn Future Life bars. I mean, so good for him, bastard.
All right, cool. So what we're going to do is I'm going to let you give the wooden spoon. And again, similar thing. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. You do whatever you feel is obviously natural to your wooden spoon vibe. And then you're going to shout out the name. Okay, you ready?
You ready?
3, 2, 1.
Hello, Carla. Here's the wooden spoon, babes. Love you.
That was too nice, dude. That was too nice. It was like, no, the first one you had, like, you know what you did? You balanced it. You had such like a high peak golden spear. It took us down there. And now you were like, you meted it out. Nice. Equilibrium. I loved it. Waves. Awesome.
Babes,
awesome.
layers. There's going to be layers to your gameplay. You see, now you get me. Now you're starting to understand the tiramisu of my gameplay.
It's a hell of a roller coaster, dude. At one point, I think I'm on the same wavelength as you, and then you've taken me to the top and you've brought me back down. Fantastic, I love it. Okay, Storms Brewing predictions. What do you think's coming?
Well, obviously the ramifications of my vote. So Santi's relationship with Carla and Wada is obviously going to now be an interesting one because they were also blindsided by that. So Santi's relationship with Carla and Wada is going to be in an interesting place. I think Carla's position is going to be very interesting. Wada's position is going to be very interesting. In that now they found themselves on the wrong side of a majority. So on Runa, I think that's where those storms are brewing. Sorry, on New Zamba, that's where the storms are brewing. I think on New Vuna, it would obviously be this question of like, what's going to happen with the old Vuna members? Like, are they going to be able to squirrel their way in? What's going to happen with Tyson and the Idol? What's going to happen with Teresa? In that she still is kind of faced with these difficulties of breaking in with much the same people. So those are that's the major cold front on the map that I can point out. Stormy clouds over Carlisiberg, Wada Fontaine, Santanese, on and on this labor metaphor goes.
Oh, no problem, dude. I think that was spot on. And also, this is one of the shows that I'm having where I'm actually just super chuffed just to listen. I think you got a lot of good insights, and I think the way in which you put it all together, super fantastic package. And I'm actually super bummed. Like I said, we didn't see the evolution of Jafar. I mean, where Jafar becomes the snake. We didn't actually see you become the snake, but you did have your golden staff, and that was pretty impressive in my books.
But I want to hear who gets your golden thing, who gets your wooden spoon, who gets your
like I said, man, I was just too busy caught up in your thing.
My face. Give that wooden spoon to my face, baby. I can't. There's no more space in this back for knives. You gotta
No, look. If I'm looking from the wooden spoon perspective, I don't think you guys can be fractured as a tribe. But I think going into it, you do have the numbers up front, so there's no need to sort of shout from the mountaintops that there was a blind side before and we're not getting along together, despite the fact that I've got the perception of I'm not necessarily gelling with these guys. I think as soon as you make it very apparent that there's a crack, guys are going to start peeling away at the crack and start seeing what's behind the ceiling, and work with what they had. So, and I think that was a mistake. And then once I think you guys have decided to go that route, you've got to go full tilt. You've got to try and drive that message home and do everything you can, because that's the path you've created now for yourself. So that's the difficulty thing. And then you try and retract it. And once you've done that, you've just come from a blind side. Now you're trying to retract what is going on. The trust was completely flawed. And I think Paul, to be honest, Paul is the character where he's not going to hide anything. What you see is what you're going to get from him. And he wasn't giving anything from what we could see in terms of any working relationship. And even his face, his remark to Santoni, when Santoni says, there's an idol. It's like, bro, why are you telling me no? He's looking at her like all shocked and disappointed by that. So you talk about these layers, and it's what I've gathered from you on this roller coaster. You've got to give that time, and you've got to understand it, right? And I think, like you said, in Survivor, you don't have that time to understand it, and it's a difficult sort of scenario. So I kind of feel like the guys that do connect on that first facet, lawyer, or I don't know, rugby coach, I think it's easier to move forward because you haven't over calculated something. And I think maybe that was your downfall. And to a certain extent, that is the downfall that I'm seeing for Teresa, because Teresa's got a hell of a read on the game. So super fantastic read on the game. She's just struggling because she's over cautious about things. And sometimes you just got to go with momentum and see where you land up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hot take.
Yeah. Sorry, then that's pretty much sums up my take on that. So welcome guys. But look, Mike, final thoughts. What do you want to leave the people with? What do you want to tell them? And also, where can they follow you if you want them to follow you, of course? Oh, also your monologues. People want to hear your Shakespeare, bro. I'm telling you, there are people out there that want to see it. They want to hear it. You look a bit like Shakespeare. I think we could do maybe I'll Photoshop your face as a young Shakespeare.
His little. That's very kind of you, by the way. Just say yeah. Something I really do want to bang home is like, before I started playing this game, I thought, so this sounds corny, but I really mean it. It's something I said a lot. I used to think Survivor was a very good game that humans had invented, and now I'm kind of convinced that it's probably the best game that humans have invented. Like, it has a little bit of absolutely everything in it, and it doesn't sound possible, but it's even better in real life. It's even more 4D chess. It's even more hard and entertaining. And it's like, it's nice to sit on the couch and watch people come up with a blind side. But when you've not slept for 2 days and you're coming up with a blind side, it takes the experience into something else. And I really do. I think it's the best game that humans have invented. And that game takes a lot to put on. That game it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of logistics. It takes a lot of creative vision. It takes a lot of money. And the people who put on Survivor, Afrikaans, Mnet, the production team, they're masters of the craft. Like, the work they do is stellar. And there were so many things I learned from the game, and one of that was just to be in real awe of a level of vision and professionalism. And I just want to give a big shout out to those dudes, because they deserve it. Like, I mean, if you feel chuffed after kind of, I don't know, baking a good cake or making something that felt good, you should see this cake that they make. It is truly something to behold, and what a honor, what a privilege just to be a little small cog in that big machine.
And I also think like one of the key things to this cake that they put together are the ingredients and where they go and source these ingredients. I mean, Jason, Pinty, yourself, 3 boots, and 3 boots I can say after talking to, I'm super, super bummed. And I'm not just trying to butter you guys up. I feel like each person had more potential going further in the game, but you've added so much to what it is right now. After 3 episodes, it feels like I've already watched a season based on what's happened and based on how much has gone on. So I can only imagine what's coming our way. So Mike, thank you so much. And I think on that note, again, thank you to the guys who do put this together, because they are diehard fans and like you said, masters of their crafts. So yeah, have an awesome one, man.
And you can see that in the quality of the cut. The fact that the producers and the directors are super fans, you can see it. And they are craftsmen of the top degree to them.
Purists as well. Purists.
And thanks to all you guys, because this has also been half of the fun and half of the anxiety is watching it be received and enjoyed. So just a big shout outs to both the everyday couch fans and then the people who run like super fan podcasts obsessively. Thank you, you two. Like, you guys are a beautiful part of the tapestry.
Oh, thank you very much, man. I think that's the first compliment. No, I lie. It's not the first one, but I appreciate it.
See, this is how I got people to now you're like, let's talk shop. Maybe you want to vote again.
No, we can talk shop.
Maybe we should vote again. Rob has a podcast. Get them out of here while the time is good. You see, babes, this is how I play. This is why I like Mike's a threat. Now you see you're like and drinking the compliment now. That's close to having you in alliance.
The Mike Kool-Aid. The Mike Kool-Aid is a tasty one, guys. Be careful. And if you see him in real life, I mean, it's worth a taste. Just be careful with that rabbit hole that takes you down.
If you're inciting people to taste me, that is not where I was expecting this thing to go, but I also endorse it, so let's go.
All right, Mike, have an awesome evening, man, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks, dude. Thanks so much for your time. We'll chat soon. Cheers.
Cool. Sweet, man. Cheers.